Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Just a bunch of videos to cover today. News stuff, like weird news stuff, and the mainstream media just keeps on getting worse and worse. Stuff to do with JoJo. I think something to do with Tucker as well. I wanted to talk about the membership in a video today, but I had a migraine last night, and I'm just feeling better. I don't get migraines very much anymore. You're watching, there's a clip of something here I want to get to in a second where there's this whatever it is, this dog butt poop thing that's I covered yesterday on my other channel. I'll just keep on playing it until I get to the point here. I haven't been getting migraines really since I went off caffeine and chocolate. My health has gotten a lot better. I'm doing a lot of outside work, but once in a while I get something, and it usually involves an upset stomach, and it's just kind of drained. It set me back today. I'm going to do a lot of outdoor work, and I'm going to minimize my time on the computer because it doesn't help. But, it's basically getting better. I mean, it's pretty much gone. And you don't need to say anything. The headache will be gone by the time you comment. And I appreciate why people say things. It's positive that people are, wishing me well, but you don't need to. When I mention it's just understanding what's going on at my end in terms of, whatever's happening today on my, this job I do here. I expect that there's going to be bad days. One of the problems with America is we think that everything, we're kind of told that you can be happy in every moment, but happiness is only available, is only a part of unhappiness, right? Happiness and unhappiness going, pleasure and pain going, they're two sides of the coin, all these things, right? The only way that you know happiness is when you know sadness and misery, which are a big part of our experience. It's a big, part of the Sajmarg teachings, gratefulness meditation we're doing now, that there needs to be, both sides of the coin. If you want one thing, you need the other. You're going to get the other. If you want wealth, you need deprivation. You want, whatever it is, it comes in two coins, something Master Charji, the third master, the Sajmarg system, used to say all the time when he came to America, that when you get pleasure, you're going to get pain. Everything has two sides of the coin except love, which is the only singular thing in the universe. So I expect there's going to be bad days, and I just, I mitigate them as best as possible, but there's always benefit in them. And that's what working on, being grateful is all about. It's the bad things that make the good things better. But anyways, today's my daughter Anna's birthday. She would have been 23. She committed suicide. So it's always like not a great day. I looked at the calendar today. I don't always know the date, but today I do, and it's kind of a bummer. Anyways, let's get back to this baked goods thing. I talked about her birth today quite extensively in my next Journey series video that's coming out, whenever it is, and this next weekend or whatever, number 102. And so I'm not going to talk about it here. And so there's this baked good things that somebody sent me an Instagram video, and it's a dog's butt, and there's some sort of mousse or pudding that comes out. And it looks like the dog's pooping, and you're eating the dog's poop. Because, they're really obsessed with children's toys, and this is what I said yesterday in my video. There's a lot of children's toys that feature poop and toilets and things like that. But they're really obsessed with you eating poop, right? Like you're eating poop all the time, not just in terms of your, whatever it is, your crappy foods and your processed foods and your chemicals and toxins and the pollutants in the air. Like we're ingesting poop, and even worse. I mean, things that are worse than poop. That are worse than poop, right? That are, inorganic and they're toxic, but even more so on the content that you see every day in the mainstream media or TV shows, or I just covered Diablo 4 video game or whatever it might be. It's just crap. Like it's just bad for you. It's garbage. It's toxic. And then just all the toxic ideas and all the, the culture they're pushing on you, especially young people. And it's just so horrible, right? It's just, and they really want you to to love like eating poop. Like this is the kind of thing they're pushing on you, right? That you're eating garbage and you're supposed to like it. You're ingesting things on all levels, spiritually, 5G, whatever it is, things that are messing with your vibratory system, your spiritual essence. All across the board, our culture is producing toxic, whatever it might be, content and vibrations and foods and, whatever you're eating, ingesting, because you ingest content as well. When you're watching a movie, you're ingesting it, right? When you're on the internet and looking at news or whatever it is, you're ingesting it. And they're really obsessed with this idea of you, eating poop. And, here's a graphic example of that. All right, so let's check in with some of the poop that they're putting out there. Some of the boop. Let's start here. All right, so I saw this on MSNBC. YouTube recommended this to me because I was watching all this MSNBC stuff 2 days ago. Joe Biden's funniest moments supercut. Now, I haven't seen it yet, but I know what it's going to be. And it's going to be Jojo Magoo being his senile, even, before that, weird self. I mean, he was always weird. And being incompetent mentally, and them trying to make it a joke rather than, call it for what it is. They're trying to minimize his incompetence.
Barack Obama.
Thank you, everybody.
So they're saying his greatest gaffes. Not, they're trying to say, all right, these things are going to come out during his re-election process. So let's make him funny. Let's try to turn him into something positive here.
Thank you.
Senator, anything to report? Successful dump. I dropped everything at the dump. It all worked out. And by the way, I got a second load, guys coming. Anybody wants to help me unload?
He had a successful dump. Like I didn't even see that. I never saw that one.
Chuck Graham, state senator's here. Chuck, stand up. Chuck, let him see you. Oh, God love you. What am I talking about? I tell you what, you're making it.
He's in a wheelchair. And these are old, right? These are before he's gone senile. Like he's always done stuff like this, which CNN documented, right? And that, I've showed you that so much, where they're talking about him being a snoozler, groper, and all these things, a gaff magnet, and a liar, when they didn't want him running against Hillary in 2015.
Everybody else stand up, though, pal. Thank you very, very much.
Everyone else stand up? Why would everyone else stand up? To show him what he can't do? Right? Well, he can't stand up, so everyone else stand up. And of course they're not, because it's a stupid thing to say.
Very much. I tell you what, stand up for Chuck. My mother believed and my father believed that if I wanted to be president of the United States, I could be vice president. My mother and father believed. Look, John's
You could be vice president.
last-minute economic plan does nothing to tackle the number one job facing the middle class. And it happens to be, as Barack says, a three-letter word, jobs. J-O-B-S, jobs.
Joe, you want
So there he goes.
to administer the oath?
So now they're going back in time, and they're showing you how dopey he was as vice president. Maybe they're like saying this to show you that he isn't senile now. Like they're trying, like this isn't a selling point. He's a complete moron and a buffoon, right? He's going out there embarrassing himself all the time.
Am I doing this again?
For the
For the senior staff. All right.
A number of
Does
the cabinet
anyone-
members have already.
My memory is not as good as Justice Roberts, Chief Justice Roberts. Does anyone have the? No, I. And thank you, Dr. Pepper, and thank you, Chancellor, or Dr. Paper, and
Dr. Pepper.
thank you, Chancellor. A man who will be the next president of the United States, Barack America.
Rock America.
But the Taoiseach knows a lot about it. His mom lived in Long Island for 10 years or so. God rest her soul. And although she's your mom's still alive, is your?
I mean, he's always sucked, right? They're trying to make this like he's, this is just normal for him and it's okay.
Had passed. God bless her soul. I got to get this straight. Now is the time to heed the timeless advice from Teddy Roosevelt. Speak softly and carry a big stick. End of quote. I promise you, the president has a big stick. I promise you.
So this is the Morning Joe that loves, I mean, Mika's fawned all over Jojo Magoo and talked about how he's been so successful. And I mean, they love him there. These are embarrassing and just, one of many. He's always been a dope. And now he's senile. He wasn't competent. He wasn't a good president. And a big part of being president is how the public perceives you and how the world perceives you. It's acting presidential. That's really big to these guys because that's what they hated about Trump is that he didn't act presidential. This is huge for them. And, this guy's not presidential material. He wasn't when he was vice president. And now he's worse. He's senile. He's much older. He was much sharper back then. Liz Cheney releases new ad blasting Donald J. Trump.
Former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney is out with a new political ad just this morning, warning voters of the dangers of a second Trump presidency. Joining us from Manchester, New Hampshire, NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard. Vaughn, tell us more about the ad.
Hey, well, let's start off. First, you guys were just talking about which Republicans, which voices in leadership in folks' communities are speaking up against Donald Trump.
Okay, so just to start off with, I was hoping they'd show the ad here. I'll have to go find it if they don't show it here. I showed you another thing from Morning Joe. So it's the same show. That was just what we just watched. And then yesterday I showed you where Mika and Joe were interviewing a woman, or they had a panel and they were talking about whether Joe Biden was going to be primaried by Kennedy. And she said there'll be no primary. There'll be no debates. There'll be no primary. Liz Cheney got waxed in Wyoming where her father had a huge name and she had the family history because she went against Trump. So she got obliterated. She didn't even make it into the election against the Democrats. She got primaried and lost, and her political career is over. She can't win in Wyoming that has a small population, and she could turn into a Democrat, but they don't want her. And so she's done as a politician. And now she's just running for president with zero chance to win. I'm sure she's polling like in non-existent. Well, let's just look at the Liz Cheney poll here. Okay, so here's the Republican primary, right? Here's Donald Trump. He's up here with 50%. We know he sucks. Here's Ron DeSantis. He's in green. He was at 30%. He's at 20%, which was what Biden was polling at. Here's Kristi Noem, right way there on the bottom. And Cheney. She's at like 2%, or not even, right? And so she's non-existent as a candidate.
In 2023, the answer to that is Liz Cheney. Over the last 2 years, Liz Cheney has cemented herself as the individual in American politics who has done whatever it takes to take on Donald Trump. She sacrificed her congressional seat, losing to Trump-backed Harriet Hageman. She lost in her Republican primary in Wyoming last August, and it was
now she's done.
On that stage,
and so she should leave. Like, she is no longer newsworthy, right? The only reason she's newsworthy is that she criticizes Trump. That's all she has. Like, that's her she's a one-trick pony, right?
Said she would do in the years to come whatever it took to make sure that Donald Trump did not get back into the White House. Fast forward to where we are today. On New Hampshire television, folks here in New Hampshire are going to be waking up to a new TV ad from the political organization of Liz Cheney.
Oh, wow. It's exciting to be in New Hampshire today.
In which she makes a direct effort to talk about the risk of a Donald Trump presidency. We talk about the character, and we have heard time and again from conversations with Republican voters.
Okay, let's move to the ad here
today.
Donald Trump is the only president in American history who has refused to guarantee the peaceful transfer of power.
Boom.
He lost the election and he knew it.
To become the president.
He betrayed millions of Americans by telling them the election was stolen. He ignored the rulings of dozens of courts.
I'm going to have to cut the ad short because it's loaded with January, the big day in January, film footage and yelling and stuff. And YouTube's bots and algorithms will pick it up and demonetize the video, which is weird, but, it is what it is. But it's all about Trump and Trump not accepting his, the results and how bad a person he is. And she's playing that in the Republican Party, who most people get a sense that some shady stuff went on, right? But the more important piece of this is it's just not newsworthy. She's irrelevant, right? She may run as a third-party candidate, and that'll be whatever it is. But she's irrelevant. Until she runs as a third-party candidate and she polls above 1%, and she gets some of the votes from Donald Trump or whatever, was going to go on there, then nothing is, she's irrelevant. She's already done her thing. She had her moment in the sun, and she sucks. Her dad sucked, and you're a horrible, miserable family. And not that I'm a Trumper, because I don't care. I don't, Fish boy, right? Fish boy. Someone said fish boy with an OI, and I might change it to that. I'm not sure. Fish boy or fish boy. Okay, there's one more thing here.
Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney is out with a new political ad just this morning, warning voters of the dangers of a second Trump presidency.
So I'm editing, and that's how this guy, Willie Geist, introduced this piece here, right? And I'm watching it after I'd watched the Trump ad now, the Liz Cheney ad. And before I didn't know what was in it, but now I know what he's saying there is 100% false. She wasn't warning voters about the dangers of a Trump presidency, right? Like, that's not what she was doing. She was talking about him being an election denier. And to career politicians, that's the end all of the system, is when you realize that the elections are completely bogus. And all of us have the luxury of sheeple. Like, I'm not angry or hateful towards sheeple because I realize their being sheeple affords me the luxury of being able to dive deeper and come up with more realistic narratives and get to the bottom of things, which I don't even know if it's a blessing or a curse or both or, whatever. But all of us that are in the truth community, we're blessed because if we were all truthers, remember when Alex Jones kept on saying we need to wake everybody up, right? It's an information war, but if you woke everyone up, the system would collapse. And it's going to collapse of its own accord, but until that happens, we might as well enjoy it while we can because there's no backup plan. It's this or nothing, or this or, chaos and just, Neanderthal and going back to caveman type of days where it would just be brute level and everything falling apart. But for all these people, if you don't believe in the integrity of the elections and you call those things into question, then the whole system collapses. Because it's the illusion that people have that they have a choice and that you do have a democracy and that you're participating, which makes the country go and it makes the people buy into the system. And so Donald Trump calling into question the electoral process is, I saw this with the NBA. The Warriors and the Lakers, they're talking about the officiating, which really, without really talking about that, it's cheating, right? Because it's not the officials themselves. The league tells the officials how to officiate the games. And based on what they say to the officials, the game is affected for one team or another. And all they have to say is, all right, you'll allow, like, say, the Warriors to foul Anthony Davis, or the Lakers to hold onto and to get physical with the shooters of the Golden State Warriors. And just by the officials changing the way they officiate the game, they guarantee one team or another is going to win. Because, it allows the other team to thwart what the their opponents are doing best. And it's a way of rigging the game without really just out and out just rigging it. They just change the way the officials officiate the game. And they do it all the time in the NBA. The rules are not always applied, or they're not always applied to both teams. You can see it over and over again. And so when people realize that is the same for everything in our society, whether it be, the economy and jobs and corporations and rich people versus poor people, or racial disparities, or the elections themselves, that it isn't, even though America's a lot better than a lot of other countries, it's still not fair. And the elections themselves and the politicians that get elected are just actors. It's just theater, because they're handled and told what to do, right? I mean, you can see it over and over again. We all know it. Like, it's not like a mystery. It's not some, oh, wow, I never would have thought. Of course it is, right? Like, it's so rigged. The whole system is rigged. And for those people who are in charge of the rigging, the Cheneys and the Bushes and, the Bidens and the Clintons and all the, various political families and all the people that surround the political parties and the players and the gatekeepers and all these people, for them to, have somebody come out and say the elections are rigged, like Trump, it is the worst thing. That's why they've come down on him so hard. And that's why Liz Cheney is making it all about that. It's not about how he's going to run the country. It's that he didn't accept the results of the election. And that's something you have to do. Whether you win or lose, no matter who you are, you accept the results. It doesn't matter, how powerful you are in the hierarchy. If this is the way it goes down, whoever, decides what, person wins or loses or whatever way it works out, you go out there and you shake the other guy's hand and you say, yeah, it was a fair election. And if they don't have that, if people start questioning that, it's over. And that's, that's Trump's, like, one of his greatest sins, at least to Liz Cheney. But anyways, let's move on here.
There is still more and more fallout from these defamation and lies cases against Fox News, the settlement, the ousting of Tucker Carlson, and now reports that he wants to, quote, torch his old employer. Now, Fox. Well,
I think that's going to happen, but, you think about how much Fox is slamming and undermining Tucker Carlson, and Don Lemons just walks away peacefully, right? Like, the difference between the two networks, because Don Lemons no one cares about, where there's still energy. And, Fox News is a little bit more savage. But this is going to end badly because they've already leaked a bunch of stuff. And, I think he would have went after him anyway. And he's going to land somewhere else and make a lot of money. And he's got to somehow bring all those people over to some lesser network, which isn't easy to do. We'll see what his ratings are.
Ousted Carlson, but under contract, if they keep paying him, he can be kept, according to this contract and the way it's been reported, off the air. Carlson, though, preparing to, quote, unleash allies to attack Fox News to try to bully the network into letting him work for or start a right-wing rival. That's a report out of Axios. They say Carlson has also had contact with outlets, including Rumble and Newsmax, offering to pay him more than his Fox contract. It's really striking to see all this play out in public. This is the kind of stuff that doesn't usually matter as much unless you are someone as big as Carlson became, because of Fox, of course, that you might actually be a real competitor, a threat.
So he must be under contract for some length of time, so he can't go work for somebody else. And they're paying him off, and he'll make more money somewhere else, and I'm sure he wants to, he was into doing what he was doing.
And the outlets who want Carlson are clearly at peace with or outright happy with what.
So what's going on here with this guy? This is one of Ari Mibler. This is one of their better, one of the better people on CNN and MSNBC. Not because of what he says or what he believes or what he pushes. He's a good deliverer of information, like a good, where Don Lemons was incompetent and, Mika and Joe are ridiculous. This guy is more convincing, right? Like, he's more skilled as an actor and a reader of news than a lot of the people on there. But he's horrible in terms of his, what he says or what he believes. But they get no views, right? MSNBC and CNN are irrelevant networks. They get nothing in terms of the primary demographics and, you know, the age group that people most want. They just have older people, and they get less of them than Fox News. So this is somebody who's, I mean, they're dying and they're losing the battle of competition against individual people like me on the internet, which makes up where most people get their news from something other than what used to be considered news, right? And so it's somebody whose show's dying on a network that sucks and dying, and it's a network that's on welfare, kind of like it's on, it's not money making, and these are cost heavy shows, cost heavy, programming for, something with no future. People aren't going to watch it's unwatchable, especially for younger people. And when the next, when the boomers die out, it won't be able to sustain itself. It'll have to be propped up by the powers that be. The CIA and the government will have to pay them to run propaganda even more than they're doing now. It'll be completely governmental controlled or controlled by one party or another, and it'll be funded by the political party and the government or whatever it might be.
Has been these basically damning texts that have been revealed that are anti-woman, anti-minorities, a lot of different stuff, although as we've reported, some of that just matches what he was doing on air. So Rumble and Newsmax clearly don't see that as a fireable offense. Rumble, if you haven't heard of it, it's that video platform that has become something of a haven for QAnon supporters, according to one outlet, Salon, that says they
Rumble. Where we go, Q.
share all kinds of content otherwise banned on other social media platforms. Newsmax we've reported on before. They have a range of hosts, and they've had a range of emphasis over the year. But right now, they also face a Dominion defamation case for going down the rabbit hole of those same lies that led to such a costly payout for Fox. So what we're seeing here is something that could definitely get ugly. Then there are the leaked videos. Now, we don't have...
All right, so there's an article, too, I have on my other toolbar about this, but it's basically the same thing. It's going to be an ugly divorce because I wasn't aware that Tucker Carlson is still under contract with them and can't go seek other employment, so that, whatever it is. So as it worked out, I ended up starting this video late because of my headache. I feel a lot better now. And just completed dinner, and I have some extra time tonight to finish this video. And so Tucker dropped this, which kind of confirms that him and Fox are, going to go to war. So I looked it up, and Fox owes Tucker Carlson $20 million. And I'm not sure if that's per year or like 2 years or whatever. So they can keep him under contract and not allow him to pursue something else. But he's doing this here where he's not, he's just posting on Twitter, which, well, here, let's get into it here.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson.
Hey, Tucker.
You often hear people say the news is full of lies, but most of the time that's not exactly right. Much of what you see on television or read the New York Times is in fact true in the literal sense. It could pass one of the media's own fact checks. Lawyers would be willing to sign off on it. In fact, they may have. But that doesn't make it true. It's not true.
Okay, so I've explained this years and years ago. I think most people in the truth community know this. There's what they call facts, right? There's, I've explained this, right, over and over again.
At the most basic level, the news you consume is a lie of the stealthiest and most insidious kind. Facts have been withheld on purpose, along with proportion and perspective. You are being manipulated. How does that work? Let's see. If I tell you that a man has been unjustly arrested for armed robbery, that is not, strictly speaking, a lie. He may have been framed. At this point, there's been no trial, so no one can really say. But if I don't mention the fact that the same man has been arrested for the same crime 6 times before, am I really informing you? No, I'm not. I'm misleading you.
There has been an age-old problem in the truth community, and I've said before, I don't care about Tucker Carlson. I don't have an issue with him. I know he comes from a rich family. Like, I know that now. I don't know that much about him, but he's been in the establishment. He's kind of a weird guy. He's got there's a certain strangeness about him. But, you know, he's as much of a truther as you're going to see in the mainstream media. Not that he's a truther, but he's, you know, he covers these narratives. And I don't worry about the so-called truth community and damage being done because, like, the battle lines have already been drawn. And almost everybody's picked their side, right? And, you know, I'm not here to, and it isn't my life goal to wake everybody up or wake anybody up. And I say over and over again, the system can't be saved. So I don't get into it about the purity of the truth community and, you know, Tucker or any of these people. Alex Jones, you know, he did damage and the QBs did damage. But for what? You know, to the mainstream media that we don't care about or the sheeple we don't care about, or they have made it so there's restrictions now and community guidelines, and they've, you know, that's been a problem. And without the QBs and without Alex Jones and Trump to some extent and the right-wing truthers who aren't truthers at all, then we would have, you know, go back to the way it was on the internet where you could pretty much say anything. And that's what Tucker Carlson's going to get into here in a second. So, you know, for me, I just don't care, right? It's everyone's doing their own thing. And I look at more of like a Noah's Ark kind of situation, that there is going to be some drastic changes ahead of us. And those of us who are, you know, willing to adapt to those changes need to start preparing now, preparing ourselves mentally, certainly preparing ourselves spiritually more than anything else, and then gaining skills and have, you know, what we need to survive. And there's not, you know, not everyone's going to get on the ark, right? I mean, there's going to be a massive die-off of people, and not everybody's going to be allowed back into Earth in a reincarnation type of situation. So, you know, all these people who are, you know, willfully being ignorant and ignoring what's right in front of them, they're not, you know, they're not doing any of us a disservice, right? They're just selecting themselves to be, you know, cut, right? Basically cut out of humanity. So again, why would I be mad at them or, you know, care about what happens or their opinions? We're all going to lose people. We're all going to have people in our family who aren't going to make it. And, you know, I'm older. I mean, you know, I don't know how much I can adapt and whatever happens and whatever's, you know, whatever next life type of situation there is, you know, it's already set into motion. But there is a problem in the truth community. If somebody like Tucker Carlson comes into the truth community, a celebrity, somebody who was in Hollywood before or whatever, and they're immediately propped up and put at the top of the, like the pyramid of the, you know, the truth community in terms of views, in terms of interests, in terms of support, even though Tucker's late to the party, right? Like I was a truther and making videos back when Tucker was mocking, you know, that guy, whatever his name is, Adam and the Man, for asking him about the big event 2001. So I played that video and Tucker's like, come on, yeah, come on. And he's like that. And again, you know, he's changed to whatever extent. Like, I don't know if he's some kind of, you know, CIA shill or something, or, you know, intelligence community shill like the rest of them. I don't know. Like, none of it really is all that important. But in terms of the way he's worshipped now, like, he knows more than you. Why has he jumped past what you know and his ability to, you know, I mean, interpret these events that are happening when he was a mainstream media person up till about 3 or 4 years ago, right? Like, all his transformation has been fairly recent. And, you know, now he's an expert, right? Like, why would that be? Because he was a shill and he worked for CNN and Fox News and he wore a bow tie and he was a part of the club and now he's a truther, so he's so much better than, you know, all the people who have been doing it for years. I mean, his stuff is remedial. Like, you know, he's not a deep person and he's not going deep into the truth community, and it has a right-wing slant. And so, you know, whatever you want to do, you want to watch him, that's, you know, that's your problem. You know, but like, be honest about that. He's not a real truther. I mean, whatever he is, he's, at the very least, he's late to the party, right? He should be in the stage where he's listening instead of telling, right? He should be learning instead of teaching, you know, but he serves a purpose for the establishment.
And that's what the news media are doing in every story that matters, every day of the week, every week of the year. What's it like to work in a system like that? After more than 30 years in the middle of it, we could tell you stories. The best you can hope for in the news business.
So this is where he's kind of indicating that he's going to go scorched earth on Fox, which I would enjoy seeing, right? Because Fox sucks, and that would be at least entertaining.
At this point is the freedom to tell the fullest truth that you can. But there are always limits. And you know that if you bump up against those limits often enough, you will be fired for it. That's not a guess, it's guaranteed. Every person who works in English language media understands that. The rule of what you can't say defines everything. It's filthy, really, and it's utterly corrupting. You can't have a free society if people aren't allowed to say what they think is true. Speech is the fundamental prerequisite for democracy.
See, we don't have a democracy. We haven't had one. Never a real one, right? I mean, the beginning of the democracy, only white men could vote, and you couldn't be you had to be a certain level of education. I mean, there's all these things, right? And it's slowly opened up, but the more it's opened up, the more it's been controlled by money and influence and all these things. And we all know that. It's not important. The binary system, the left-right paradigm. This is the kind of thing that so many people in the truth community jump for, because they look at Tucker Carlson as an insider, and he's going to get to the bottom and rat out all the dirt. And come on, it's not going to happen. It's not ever going to happen. Why would he choose you over them? Why would he choose the viewer over the people with the money and power? I mean, they're so much worse than you. I mean, he's part of a club. They're all part of a club. They all are, wealthy and elite, and they're part of whatever, they're part of that group more than they'll ever be part of the, average person. And they don't respect you or care about you. And so if they're going to come out and tell the truth, it's only because the people in power are wanting them to do that. It's not like any true whistleblower is going to, the person would be ostracized or killed, or, if they were doing it without permission, then they would be disappeared.
That's why it's enshrined in the first of our constitutional amendments. Amazingly, as of tonight, there aren't many platforms left that allow free speech. The last big one remaining in the world, the only one, is Twitter.
Twitter?
Where we are now.
You're now?
Twitter has long served as the place where our national conversation incubates and develops. Twitter,
in these short little tweets, Twitter
is not a partisan site. Everybody's allowed here, and we think that's a good thing. And yet, for the most part, the news that you see analyzed on Twitter comes from media organizations that are themselves thinly disguised propaganda outlets.
No way.
You see it on cable news, you talk about it on Twitter. The result may feel like a debate, but actually the gatekeepers are still in charge.
He's using all the terms.
We think
you're not a gatekeeper, though, right, Tucker?
That's a bad system. We know exactly how it works, and we're sick of it.
He's sick of it. He's just sick of it. That now that he's been fired, he's sick of it.
Starting soon, we'll be bringing a new version of the show we've been doing for the last 6.5 years to Twitter. We'll be bringing some other things, too, which we'll tell you about. But for now, we're just grateful to be here. Free speech is the main right that you have. Without it, you have no others. See you soon.
See ya, Tucker. So that's him saying they're gonna. I guess he worked for CNN and Fox, and but he would confront the intelligence community or some of these, whatever. I'm just, it's just entertainment. I don't know if you could hear the sirens outside. The noise cancellation on this microphone has been pretty good, but we've had a number of fires and things going on. I've been hearing something pass over our house. We've had a number of helicopters and things that we usually don't have. And, I heard something where it sounded like something massive, like some massive, spaceship was over our house, and then it just disappeared. We also have a quarry near us where there's explosions or, they're blowing up rock or crushing it or something. I don't know. It's really loud. It's 3, 4, 5 miles away, but we can hear it. So it's all that stuff. But anyways, for people in the truth community, it's the time to evaluate whether the system can be saved or not. And for me, it's such a slam dunk that it can't be. The system will never be a good system for us. When we think of the system, we think of the pleasures. We think of the things we like. We think of being able to drive our car, or traveling, or, electricity and water and, water pumped into our house and food at the grocery store and all the things that we like to do. All the things that, are supposed to be American. Baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet, right? These American, pillars of pleasure and, how we spend our free time and our jobs and our money and our this and our that, right? And those are the things that politicians are always trying to promise you that they're going to keep those things going. That's Trump's Make America Great Again. All these politicians are promising you that you're going to have a good lifestyle, and corporations and everyone else, that this will continue forever. And it's not sustainable. It never has been. It's a debt-based economic system, a usury system. But even if it was sustainable, it's not good for you. A pleasure-based system is never good for a person. You have to, like I said in the beginning, be able to take miseries and difficulties and challenges, and you got to get in touch with God and your soul, and on a spiritual level that, most religious people, even most spiritual people, don't even come close to doing that because we live in such a materialistic society. So it's never been great for us, right? We're getting weaker and dumber and more entitled and just, more unlikable. I mean, we're going in the wrong direction. And that, more than anything else, is the telltale sign. You can't fix that, right? It's how the system affects us all, and affects us negatively. We're going, into a direction where we're less than earlier generations of people were. They were more than us. They were higher functioning. They had better, social skills. They had better community. They had better families. They had more skills and talents. They could do more. They could tolerate more. They were more gracious. They were kinder. They were more, everything. Like, we're weaker and just in every level more sucky. So it's not what you like about the system. Well, I wish we could save this part of the system or that. It's how the system affects us. And we now know this experiment, it affects us poorly. If we look at this as an experiment, people are worse than they used to be. And so that system is going to implode just because people are sucky and can't do anything and, it's just when the people are immoral and have lost their way, then the system that's taken them in the wrong direction has to go. And there's like divine rules about laws, and it's inevitable. And so any of these people who are truthers that are trying to tell you they can save the system, they're lying to you, and it's kind of worse than the opposition side, the people that are your enemies, because they're selling you hopium of something that doesn't exist. And Tucker falls into this category. But anyways, I just wanted to add this. Again, the rest of this stuff I'm going to show you, I taped earlier this morning. And then this Tucker thing broke, so I inserted it here. But let's get into the other stuff. State of the Union with Jake Tapper's and Dana Bash. Jake Tapper got fired from his... CNN's an absolute mess.
Welcome back.
So they have Caitlin Collins, who really sucks. And her big claim to fame was she asked questions of Trump and pissed him off. And so that was enough for her to get the morning show with whatever the woman's name is. Don't care, don't tell me, don't need to know. And Don Lyman's. And, it's unwatchable. But now she's on this show as well. And this is Collins presses GOP 2024 hopeful on his definition of woke. This is going to be awesome.
Back to State of the Union, I'm Caitlin Collins. It's a familiar biography. A multimillionaire businessman running for president, promising to shake up Washington. His name is not former President Trump, it's Vivek Ramaswamy. He is 37. He's using his biotech fortune to make early inroads with...
Okay, let's get to the interview here. This is the guy that Don Lemon had an interview with, and, I showed you the clip. One of the reasons he got fired.
So deep that it dilutes these agendas to irrelevance and actually unifies us as a country. And I'm running because I believe genuinely that I'm the candidate best positioned to actually deliver national unity by reawakening that shared American identity.
Boom. He's going to do it.
I want to ask you more about that platform, but you are self-funding your campaign, at least for right now. How much are you prepared to spend?
So there's really no limit we've put on in terms of what I'm going to spend on this campaign. I've been fortunate to live the full arc of the American dream, and if there's one thing I care about...
Okay, let's move to the woke part.
It's the normal gatekeeper in this process, one of the things I'm calling out.
Well, on that front, one of the things, you've been dubbed the CEO of anti-woke. You have written several of these books. You've been very vocal of your criticism of what you say is wokeism, woke religion. Can you just define how do you define woke?
Woke. Caitlin Collins asking the tough questions.
Yeah, and I'm going to define it in neutral terms, not in critical terms. Being woke refers to becoming alert to invisible societal injustices, generally based on genetically inherited characteristics like race, sex, and sexual orientation, and then being called upon to act on those injustices using whatever potential legally means are necessary, including the market, to do it. That's a neutral definition that even most proponents of wokeism in the United States would agree with. Now, my criticism of this is I think that it's inherently divisive to tell us that we're nothing more than the characteristics we inherit on the day we're born. That divides us on the basis of race and sex and sexual orientation. And then when that merges with capitalism, which is what I've actually been the biggest critic of, what it does is we lose the sanctuary, the apolitical sanctuary in our economy that otherwise brings us together, whether we're black or white.
Yeah, the selfishness of capitalism should trump any sort of differences. Like this is a person who's pitching the American economic system because he's done well with it as the pinnacle or the foundational building blocks of what could make America basically great, right? Great again or great or whatever it is. And Donald Trump and these other guys are doing the same thing. But capitalism, it's, not only is a debt-based economic system collapsing, but it breeds selfishness and entitlement and takes people in the wrong direction. It takes them away from God, and, we have all the evidence in front of us, like it's a failure. Like we couldn't say it's a failure in the 50s. I mean, there's things there, if you dug deep, sure, but just based on what life was in the 60s, not so much. 70s, you start seeing in the 80s. Then the 90s, you really started to see it, right? Where people just started to suck, and we were doing economically great. And, the tech boom and all these things. And people started really, people have gotten worse and worse in America over the span of my lifetime. Each generation, more entitled, weaker, more selfish. And, the boomer generation may go down as the most selfish generation ever because, the system will collapse during, from their selfishness, right? But each generation after them has gotten more and more selfish and more entitled. And so that's capitalism, right? It shows you that the idea of, making your economy and the pursuit of wealth and happiness the centerpiece of your social belief system doesn't work. The experiment's over, right? It doesn't make you happy. It doesn't make you, natural. It doesn't jive with, doesn't go along with what your soul wants you to do here, your spiritual reason for being here. And so there's a sense of emptiness that goes along with it. You have beautiful stuff, right? That's great. You have, nice things, sure, that's great. And you have all these, technical devices, technology, all this technology that's evolved over time. But people have gotten worse. People have gotten weaker as the technology has gotten better. It's hurt us in all these variety of ways, right?
Even whether we're Democrat or Republican, that's one of the underappreciated reasons why capitalism has to stay apolitical. And I'm proud to say I've been the leader on leading that fight over the course of the last couple of years, and with some progress because I think we're turning the tide where companies are realizing that they're not doing good for themselves or even doing good for society by engaging in these fraught political and
okay, she's ready to go with another question.
Social questions, and I think we're beginning to see that change of the tide.
I know you have a lot of positions on the company.
She's got the real Gumby do. Her head is actually shaped like Gumby's. As you can see, I was just repeating what I was saying about Tucker Carlson. but I said this earlier and forgot about it. But, you know, it's the same. This is a good example of what I was saying, that this guy is proposing a solution that doesn't exist. He's presenting the problem to the right-wing people, which is wokeism, and selling them the solution, which is get back to capitalism. And, you know, that system's collapsing as well, right? Just same thing with Donald Trump. You can't go back to what worked before because it was always a dying system. The system we had before evolved into what we have now, right? It isn't like it's two different states or two different systems. It's the system at 30 years old versus a system at 70 or 80 years old, right? Like, you know, we're getting close to death of the system. When people say, hey, let's go back the way it was, you'd say you can't turn back time in your own life. You can't transform your body back to what it was like when you were 20, when you're 80, right? And you can't turn the system back. This is what the system's become as it got older. This is what the system ended up becoming, right? It's not, you know, it can't be reversed. This is it, and it's just going to get worse until it dies. Okay, so let's do a few more minutes on Fish Boy's deposition.
And you consider yourself to be a star?
I think you can say that, yeah.
It's just the weird look he gives.
And now you said...
I saw a news report where a woman was saying the misogynistic way he was treating this woman's, E. Jean Carroll's lawyer who's doing the deposition. And this isn't misogynistic. Trump's just an a-hole, and he's, you know, I mean, and some of the things he's saying is true, right? The whole thing's corrupt and a joke. Like, I don't think Trump did it, you know, and I don't know, like, he could have. The story doesn't hold much weight for me. But either way, he's hurt himself with the stupid stuff he said, and he's hurting himself in this deposition. And, you know, perception is everything because truth is no longer exists. Everything's about the way people perceive it. And Trump's, you know, done a horrible job here.
Before, a couple of minutes ago, that this was just locker room talk.
It's locker room talk.
And so...
Locker room talk.
Does that mean that you didn't really mean it?
No, it's locker room talk. I don't know. It's just the way people talk.
Okay.
In locker rooms.
Now, are you familiar with a woman by the name of Natasha Stoyanov?
No.
Natasha Stoyanov.
Is she in a locker room?
You'll have to give me a little bit of
Do you remember she wrote about you a lot when she worked at People magazine?
Oh, I do remember there was some woman that wrote, and then she, a long time later, I think she wrote a wonderful story, and then a long time later, as I remember it, a long time later she said that I was aggressive with her. But she wrote the most beautiful story. And then all of a sudden, like, is it a year or 2 years later, she comes out with this phony story that I was aggressive. I said, well, why would she have written such a good story for People magazine? She wrote a really nice...
A really good story means she said positive things about Trump. That's what he means by good story.
Piece. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, years or months, many months later...
Millions of years, all of a sudden, millions of years.
She came up with this phony charge.
Let's watch a video, and again, I apologize for the technology, where you talk about Ms. Stoyanov's allegations.
Are we marking this?
We're going to mark it. It's a clip of a video from a campaign event in West Palm Beach on October 13, 2016, and we're going to mark it as DJT 36.
Then there was a writer from People magazine who wrote a story on Melania and myself on our first anniversary. The story was beautiful. It was beautiful. It was lovely. But last night we hear that after 12 years, this took place 12 years ago, this story.
12 years, not billions.
A new claim that I made inappropriate advances during the interview to this writer.
Boo! Why are we booing? Boo! Boo!
And I ask a very simple question. Why wasn't it part of the story that appeared 20 or 12 years ago? Why wasn't
20,
it
12 million, whatever it is. Whatever it takes.
part of the story? Why didn't they make it part of the story? I was one of the biggest stars on television with The Apprentice, and it would have been one of the biggest stories of the year. Think of it. She's doing a story on Melania, who's pregnant at the time, and Donald Trump, our one-year anniversary. And she said, I made inappropriate advances. And by the way, the area was a public area, people all over the place. Take a look. You take a look. Look at her words. You tell me what you think. I don't think so. I don't think so.
This is her, Natasha Stoyvik. There she is with Mike Tyson. There she is there. So Trump's saying that she's not up to his standards. There they are with, there she is with Trump and Melania. There she is, curvy and confident. And so Trump's saying she's not up to his standards. That seems to be his big go-to. That dog, that beast accused me, right? Like that's his go-to. That's his go-to response.
You'd agree with me that the person you were just talking about in that video was Natasha Stoyanov, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You're familiar with a woman by the name of Jessica Leeds?
No, I don't think so.
Did she accuse you of me of something? Right?
Explain. Go ahead.
Does that mean that this refreshed your recollection of who Jessica Leeds is?
This woman made up a story, just like your client made it up. Just made up a story having to do with sitting next to me in an airplane. And I mean, I'll have to read this again, but that story was...
He's really got the fish lip thing going here.
So false, also. But this was, I guess, making out as opposed to what your client said. This story was so false. This is a disgrace also.
And do you recall speaking about Ms. Leeds' allegations at campaign events in 2016?
I might have. I thought it was so, like your client, I thought it was so ridiculous.
So ridiculous.
Okay, let's take a look at the next video, which is DJT 38, correct?
Hopefully our great movement, and there's never been anything like this in the United States, and the only way they figure they can slow it down is to come up with people that are willing to say, oh, I was with Donald Trump in 1980.
Nothing changes.
I was sitting with him on an airplane. And he went after me on the plane. Yeah, I'm going to go after. Believe me, she would not be my first choice, that I can tell you.
Kaboom. That's his go-to.
Man.
You know, if there was somebody hotter, yeah, but not her. Not that pig.
You don't know. That would not be my first choice.
When you said in that video...
Okay, let's go take a look at this person. Here she is now, Jessica Leeds. There she is younger. I would say she's definitely not Trump's type. But who knows what Trump's type is. But his go-to thing, there they are together. His go-to thing is... She's too ugly to assault. That's his go-to response.
That Ms. Leeds would not be your first choice. You were referring to her physical looks, correct?
Just the overall. I look at her, I see her.
A lot of fish boy stuff going on here. I look at her, see her.
I hear what she says.
And hey, fish boy.
Whatever. You wouldn't be a choice of mine either, to be honest with you.
Kaboom! Maybe that's a little misogynistic. I don't know. I'm not a woman. But I would consider possibly that could be considered a little misogynistic.
Not insulted. I would not, under any circumstances, have any interest in you. I'm honest when I say it. I would not have any interest in.
The video we just watched, where you talked about Miss Leeds. What else did you know about Miss Leeds that would indicate to you that she would not have been your first choice, other than how she looked?
I don't know. I think I probably saw her on
Little fish boy there.
television or something. But I don't want to be insulting. But when people accuse
But I just got to be, you know.
me of something, I think I have a right to be insulting because they're insulting me.
Exactly. Boom, fish boy.
They're doing the ultimate insult. They make up stories, and then I'm not allowed to speak my mind. No, I disagree.
Well, you were able to speak your mind. You're doing it now. You did it on stage.
With that. No, she would not have been anywhere on a list. I just wouldn't have been for me.
No.
It's disgusting. It's what she said was disgusting. Can you imagine doing that on an airplane? What she said? I'm doing that on an airplane. That's almost as ridiculous as doing it in Bergdorf Goodman in a dressing room.
Almost ridiculous, but not quite.
Isn't it true that just a
He's looking at
few minutes ago you couldn't remember the date of your engagement to your current wife, Melania?
No. We're talking about a different thing. We're talking about a woman where something happened that was inappropriate, right? Inappropriate. It was highly inappropriate. She would remember that date. I would imagine she would have complained to the airline. She would know the flight. She would know everything about it. She didn't even know the year, as I remember it, just like your client doesn't know the year, doesn't know anything about it. If something happened like that to your client would know the second, should know down to the second, should know the day, the month, the year, right down to the second.
In the last paragraph...
He's an expert. Anyways, all right, so that's Trump's deposition. White House bans the post from Biden event as Hunter indictment looms. So,
Joe Biden says his son Hunter has done nothing wrong. He's proud of him as prosecutors close in on a possible indictment of the president's son after a 4-year investigation into his tax and gun violations. Here to react, New York Post columnist, author, and Fox News contributor Miranda Devine. Miranda, thanks for being here.
she's the person who broke the thing on the story on Hunter Biden on the New York Post.
This is the default setting of Joe. I think at this point, it's, I don't know anything about his business dealings, and I'm proud of him. Should we...
Anyways, the White House press office barred the Post from attending President Biden's only daytime public event Monday as federal prosecutors near a decision on criminally charging his first son, Hunter Biden, for tax fraud and other crimes. So there's that, right? The Post was disappeared on Twitter and other places. Fox News, Rupert Murdoch owns both the Post and Fox News. And so, it's continued censorship. New poll shows most Americans doubt Biden is mentally sharp enough to serve a second term. Well, duh, right? He wasn't mentally sharp enough to serve a first term. Robert Kennedy Jr. blames CIA for JFK assassination, fueling controversial claim.
Well, I think there's overwhelming evidence that the CIA was involved in this murder. I think it's beyond a reasonable doubt at this point. In terms of my uncle's death,
Well, his voice is really bad.
the evidence is overwhelming that the CIA was involved in the murder and the cover-up.
Is that how he talks all the time? Wow, that's a bummer. A lot of people like him because he's anti-you-know-what, but... Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up here. I wasn't really clear about the Hunter Biden thing, but the New York Post was deplatformed for publishing the Hunter Biden stuff that turned out to be true. The Hunter Biden story and the way it was handled blows up so many of the mainstream media, left-leaning mainstream media narratives about the election being fair, about media coverage, about corruption and Trump and anybody else, because they don't care about all the stuff that Hunter and Joe did, and its effects on the system. And it's really an embarrassment, but they just choose to ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist. And social media does the same thing, and, all the rest of it. Because, they have no other choice, right? This is all that they can do. They're so limited. But anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse. and the Ascension. I will have a blessed day and be grateful.